Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well on this fine day. Today we're going to be looking at how I took this audio clip that I recorded in my room.
Winsley, what is it you're looking at? Winsley, you're so funny.
Put it in Blender and made this animatic.
Winsley, what is it you're looking at? Winsley, you're so funny. Oh.
And then polished it in Blender to get to a final animation. So, come with me as we go on this journey. And we're going to talk about characters along the way. So it's going to be fun. Let's do it! Just to start off, I would like to say I apologize. I didn't get to record the entirety of the process, so it's going to jump around a little bit. As you can see right now, we're doing line work over the roughs and adding a lot more motion and detail to the animation. So this was my first finished project. If you have been around my channel for a bit, you may have seen the Lo-Fi Girl that I did in Greasepencil, but that was a little simpler. I'll link that up here if you want to watch it. But this one was also my first time ever lip syncing anything. So I had the audio file down in the lower bar, you can see there, and I was lip syncing on top of it, wanted to get the motions right. And I just really wanted to try to do a finished colored animation. I hadn't done that before. So yeah, it was fun. I listened to the audio file. Yeah, I just said it. I was just like, I want to do an animation. I had watched Worthy Kids do Greasepencil animations. If you're unfamiliar with his work, he's phenomenal. He's done Big Top Burger and other animations like that. And so he made a video where he started off animating just by recording an audio file and putting it into Blender and then working off that. So I'm not sure if he had a preconceived idea of what he wanted, but anyway, I was like, oh, okay, that sounds fun. Just like almost like a challenge. You just get an audio file and you have to make an animation. So I thought of an interesting dialogue. And so I came up with this dialogue that you've already heard twice. My initial thought was like, maybe it's like a senile old man sitting at a dinner table eating something, and he's like, Winsley, what are you looking at? And then the camera pans over and it's just like a stuffed animal sitting across the table. And then he like chuckles to himself. But I was like, no, maybe they're these two siblings. The guy's name is Jeffers, and then his sister's name is Winsley, and they're adventurers and they go wandering around. So I just came up with these characters off the audio file and then drew them. And this monster, just a very generic monster in the background, you know, spooky big eyes. That's how it be. So that's what I had for the characters, and I just got to animate it. So the animation part, actually, like doing the line work, was not terribly difficult for me. I don't know, it was fairly intuitive. One thing that I really do need to work on though is closing out my line work. You can see that even in the final animation, the line work is anything but clean. That's something I'm going to work on. A really nice thing about Blender's Greasepencil 2D animation tool is that you can use the nudge tool or the sculpt tool to get in-betweens between your main keyframes, which is really helpful, especially when you're just like nudging a motion in one direction or you're doing some squash and stretch. It makes it super simple, and also it creates a new keyframe. So it's also helpful when you're creating fills and stuff, which we'll get to later. And here we get to lip syncing. This was definitely the most difficult part of the animation for me, as I had never done it before, and I really had no idea how to go about it. So I watched some tutorials. Most of them were by like storytime YouTubers, so they had very simple-esque lip sync methods, which were helpful, and I printed off some of those sheets and I referenced them. And I'll probably need to continue to reference them if I do more lip syncing stuff, as I haven't memorized all the shapes, but definitely was helpful, and it was very cool to see how it can come together. And like, I'm just drawing these shapes and there's this audio file, and eventually it comes to the point where you're like, oh, the character is saying that, which is kind of nifty. It shows you the power of animation. It's really cool. So the mouths were the last thing that I needed to do to complete the line work, and once I finished that, I could watch the animation without any fills or color, but this is what it looks like.
Winsley, what is it you're looking at? Winsley, you're so funny. Oh.
So if you saw there was a little bit of like tremor in the line work of the monster and of Winsley, and that's using a noise modifier on the line work, which is something that I can't do in Procreate, which is where I do a lot of my like just little animations that are just for fun. But when you're actually using like a program that is made for animation, and Blender is primarily made for 3D animation, but its 2D animation tools are also quite good. But when you're using a program like this, there's all sorts of like little modifiers and things that you can add in that just make your life way easier. So the noise modifier like makes the lines like wiggle and adds like this little sense of motion. I also use the hue, saturation, and brightness modifier layer. And here you can see how I'm using the sculpt tool to just morph the fill so that I don't have to redraw it every time. I can just sculpt it into the new shape. So I had a layer for the monster fills and then a layer for Winsley and Jeffers fills. And I just have so much respect for people who do 2D animated feature films and even 3D animated feature films, but just the amount of time it takes, first of all, to get nice line work. I wasn't even nearly animating on 2s here. I was like animating on a very odd number of frames. I was just whenever I thought there needed to be a frame. But if you were doing 24 frames per second, that's just an insane amount of work for color and for lighting and even for like clean line work. It's just so much time. So yeah, here I'm just coming with colors and it just takes a while. Like it's just time consuming, but I did enjoy it. And after the fact, because I just came up with these characters on the spot, right? So after the fact, I was thinking, I'm like, what's their stories and what are they like? And I'm thinking that Winsley is like this, she's like fearful and like really curious. And like her brother, older brother Jeffers, is like super overconfident. And he's also fearful, but he doesn't admit it. He's always in denial of his fear. So then, but it would make for like an interesting little shorts, because they're exploring these caves or they're exploring the forest, and then Winsley's like, oh, what's that? And then he's like, oh, it's fine or whatever, like this little clip. But you could apply that to a lot of situations. It would get redundant after a while, but it's just a thought. What I would have done differently if I were to do this again, or for the next animation that I do, I would probably focus on closing out the line work, because then you could do an invert fill, and that would save me a lot of time on making the fills, because even you can see my fills are not consistent and they're not perfectly within the imperfect lines that I have drawn here. But I don't know, if you guys want to see another animation with these two characters, I would definitely be down to do it. They're fun, they're simple, and it's definitely a different style than I've ever done before, which is interesting how a different art form causes you to go into a different style. So that was cool, and it was definitely fun doing, and here I'm just adding some more finishing details, some sweat, and I do add shading and lighting, but I don't think I got a recording of that. So here we're just adding in the eyes, and then we're going to see just with the flat colors. Here's the animation.
Winsley, what is it you're looking at? Winsley, you're so funny. Oh.
That was just with the basic colors, and then here you can see me adding a little bit of the lighting to his eyes. I also applied the noise filter there, so it had a cool effect, and you can see it here with the lighting and the shading.
Winsley, what is it you're looking at? Winsley, you're so funny. Oh.
And so with all that done, I threw in a quick background, and then you can just see me here playing around with some modifiers and just ironing it all out, ready to export into all the different forms that you saw in this video so that I could show you the deconstruction and the process behind it. And with that all done, here is the final animation.
Winsley, what is it you're looking at? Winsley, you're so funny. Oh.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and let me know what you think in the comments. I got all sorts of other art videos on the channel that you can check out here. And until next time, we will see you later.